What's going on, my PT peeps, my Walking Dead family, my fighters? I'm One Eye Bright, also known as PT. I don't know if I'm winking or blinking, but I'm definitely thinking about the Walking Dead Daryl show and what Norman said about the show. It's a reset. Spoiler warning for all things Walking Dead. So we know in 2023, the Walking Dead main show is over. But we're going to get Fear the Walking Dead, Dead City, that's the Maggie and Negan show, Daryl show, and the Rick and Michonne show. So there's a lot of Walking Dead universe still to come, but per Norman Reedus and the TW Universe Spoilers and comicbook.com and a bunch of other places are saying that Norman Reedus said that it's a reset, that his show is like a reset for the Walking Dead universe. Norman Reedus said, "You learn a lot of things after 12 years doing a show, and there are certain paths that you inevitably have to follow because there's such a great cast. Really have it there. It's kind of a new beginning for us with all of the things we love to do and more. I believe it must have the vibe of a soft reboot, a sequel that you won't need to have watched the TWD to understand," is what the TWD Universe Spoilers. But the big news is that Norman says that it's kind of like a reset, somewhere starting fresh for the universe. He's also said that it's going to be effing epic. So I don't know if the show can be epic if it just has Daryl in it. So if we have Daryl and a bunch of characters that we don't know, no connection with Rick, Michonne, anything familiar to us, and also we know that the spinoff will follow Daryl when he wakes up and finds himself somewhere in the European continent and tries to figure out what happened. How did he get here, and how will he get home? That's all great questions. But for us to think that he's just going to wake up in France one day and for us to be okay with that and it not really be explained or explained that makes sense is going to be like, wah, wah, wah. But we'll have to see. So there are some photos going around of filming because they've been filming it now for a little bit and these photos have been out for a little while. But we see walkers inside like a barn or something. And I know that Norman said that they're in castles and it's different and it's cool. But we also see that Daryl is captured. Yet again, right? How many times has he been captured and, put to work and then he gets out of it? And if he's supposedly in France, who's going to be there with him? Who's going to save him? And is it like so weird now that Carol's not with him that the writing of this story doesn't make sense? Because again, it was supposed to be the Carol and Daryl show and now it's just Daryl in France. So we'll have to see if it makes sense, and ultimately I hope it does. I do like Norman Reedus. I like Daryl. Daryl's one of my favorite characters, so it could work. But if we're relying on, hey, we like Daryl, and the writing's kind of crappy, the show doesn't make sense, there's a bunch of characters that we don't care about besides Daryl, and all we care about is him getting home, and it's stretched out over 2-3 seasons, because the last time we saw Daryl, he was like, later losers, I'm on my bike, and I'm out. And we don't know how far he could go. I'm guessing he's in Ohio. Judith and RJ are safe at the Commonwealth because that's where they left, and the Commonwealth is in Ohio. Was he going to Pennsylvania, which is right next to Ohio? Is he going to try to go to Philly? I've asked the question before, how far can he get on his modified motorcycle? To run on ethanol, that's great, but are you going 200, 300, 400 miles, and then what? Do you have stops along the way where you're getting gas? The fact that Carol's not there, I think it's going to hurt the show because I like their dynamic. Like I said before, I like Daryl, and I'm rooting for the show. Don't think that I'm rooting against the show. I just have realistic expectations that it's not going to work. But it has to connect with this, right? The World Beyond post-credits scene. Because this was France, it makes sense for Daryl to be there. Now, it doesn't make sense that Daryl's going to just search and detect and figure out like an investigator, like a super sleuth Daryl is going to figure out what went on here. Maybe by chance or by accident, it would make sense. But again, the writing has to make sense, and sometimes The Walking Dead doesn't make sense. Recently, it hasn't really made the most sense. But for it to be a reset, we don't need a reset. In my opinion, we don't need a full reset. We don't need a reboot either. I want this show and all the spin-offs to add positive, great, awesome things to The Walking Dead universe. Don't ask more questions than you answer them. Bring stuff that we want to be answered. Find the connections. CRM, World Beyond stuff, Rick and Michonne, France, Primrose team. variant walkers, the start of the zombie apocalypse. It just makes sense for that to happen. And if we're just going off these tangents just to put out Walking Dead content, to me, it's not going to work. People will still watch, but we'll just have to see if it's rewarding to the Walking Dead fan base. But at least we get Daryl, then we'll get the Rick and Michonne show, we'll get Dead City, and we'll hopefully see if Fear the Walking Dead it's going to be good or not. You know, if season 8's the end of it, I'm fine with Fear the Walking Dead ending there because it's not really bringing that much to the Walking Dead universe in a good way. But Daryl is a huge character, and I think it can be done in a way that makes sense. So the other, spin-offs didn't really work in my opinion because we didn't have familiar characters. We have Daryl, but if we just have Daryl, we'll have to see if it works. Let me know your thoughts. Post your comments below. Stay safe, and as always, tell them Daryl.
Yo, we love you guys.